everybody. Welcome to our Topics at 12 Small Business Seminar. Really excited to keep continuing on with our COVID-19 series. Today we are doing Where Are Your Customers After COVID-19? Obviously, 2020 has been kind of crazy, and we've just been trying to provide relevant content. We are super thankful to our sponsors. Susan Reagan with the Small Business Center at RCC has been doing a phenomenal job of pulling together resources for us. And also like to thank our partners, Team Reedsville, the Small Business Center of Rockingham County, and the Reedsville Chamber of Commerce. Also, Rockingham Update, who has been producing these. Roy Sawyers has done a fabulous job, and he is also going to bring to us today a tech tip. So, Roy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Diane. In today's Topics at 12 Tech Tip, we're going to take a look at integrating your mobile calendar or your desktop calendar with the Zoom application itself. Real simple, let's go over what is calendar integration. According to the support.zoom.us website, you can set up calendar integration so that your Zoom meetings and webinars on your third-party calendar are synced to the Zoom desktop client. This provides an easy way to start or join your meetings. Calendar integration is compatible with the following: Google Calendar, Office 365, and Exchange. Now, it's a little bit different between a desktop application integration with Zoom and your mobile. So we're going to break these out into both parts. Let's take a look first at integrating with your desktop calendar. You're going to first sign into the Zoom web portal. You'll click on your profile. In the Calendar and Contact Integration section, you're going to click Connect to Calendar and Contact Services. Select your service. You'll change permissions on the next step, and then you'll follow any other on-screen instructions to grant Zoom access to your calendar and contact services. Now, if you're like me and many others, I'd go nowhere without my phone. My mobile device is always with me. And 90% of my Zoom meetings that I participate in, I do with my mobile device, my phone, my tablet, things of that nature. So it's different in connecting with your app or your iOS device in the fact that you're going to actually sign into your calendar app first. So we sign into the Google Calendar app, we tap the plus icon, and then we tap Event. We then tap Add Video Conferencing and select Zoom Meeting. From that point, it's just a matter of signing into your Zoom account and following the on-screen instructions. As usual, it's a lot of information. These slides will be made available along with ribbon slides of the webinar following this meeting and this broadcast for access later online. Back to you, Diane.
Thank you, Roy. And I hope that wasn't directed at me, but surely that would help people get to their Zoom meetings on time if they had it in their calendar and they could just click. So that's a great tip. I'm really excited that you presented that to people, because in all seriousness, I feel like every Zoom meeting we're in, everybody's like, okay, well, we're going to give it 5 minutes or so, because everybody's struggling to, oh, I'm in the Zoom, but now where's the ID number and where's the password? So that is a wonderful tip, because I'll be honest, I don't see virtual going away anytime soon. So, Roy, thank you for that tip. We appreciate it. All right, Ruben, we are going to turn it over to you, sir. Where are your customers after COVID-19? Take it away.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining in, and those who will be joining us in the future, since all these are recorded. So if you have any questions about the session today, I'll have my contact information, the last slide of the meeting today, so you can contact me anytime about questions about today's topic, or questions about anything that has to do with small business development, opening or expanding or maintaining a small business, especially in today's COVID environment. So over the past 4 or 5 weeks, we've had a kind of a different topic each day, but some of the sections of each of the seminars are similar. So there's a little bit of overlap. So some of the things we'll be talking about today, if you've been tuning in before, you might have heard about it before, but I'm also going to say one of my favorite topics towards the end of today's seminar I'm going to finish up with. It's called segmentation in the local marketplace, and how it's so important to have been a business that recognized what segmentation was when you started your business. And now after your business has been affected, you should still be thinking about this segmentation of the marketplace and how that aligns with your particular products or services. So save a little bit of time towards the end of the seminar today to talk about that. But we only got an hour or so, and I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get everything in. But then again, like I said, if we have questions, you're welcome to contact us or contact me later on. Okay, so how has COVID-19 affected your business? Business gets affected by a lot of things during the course of the year. When I was in business, I was in a restaurant business a long time ago. And when a big Atlanta Braves baseball game came on, we saw a downturn in sales that night. A lot of people like to follow the Atlanta Braves and so forth and so on. So yeah, we saw that a lot. When I was in Winston-Salem, if there was a Wake Forest football game that evening or a Wake Forest basketball game, that would affect business as well. So a lot of things affect business. So a lot of the points we're going to talk about today, are for anything that comes along that's going to affect your business. Obviously, the COVID-19 is a pretty big piece, a lot bigger than a Wake Forest or Carolina basketball game. But yeah, things affect businesses all the time. So, and when that happens, you're called to take a look at those. You're called to be sure you keep up with what's going on, so you can make quote unquote changes in your operation to better meet the changing demands of the local marketplace. So with COVID-19, of course, it's in safety. People are always thinking about safety. So, wherever your customer's gone, they're probably at home. If anybody got out on the road right after the North Carolina lockdown, anyway, measures were taken, the first stage of lockdown. If you got out on the road, I mean, the roads are almost empty. It was amazing. We have granddaughters, we ferry back and forth to Raleigh. And on the trip down to Raleigh, it was amazing. That first weekend we were on the road, it was almost nobody on the road. So safety is a big thing, that's why people are holed up at home. So that might be still why people, even though some lockdown measures have been lessened, have been removed, many people are still a little wary of safety. So there might still be a lockdown at home. So, that's where they are. You're wondering where your customers are. They're at home. Some of these guidelines we face that the state put in place, a lot of us weren't enthusiastic about them, but they were all based on safety. At the time they were talking about, if you remember, they were talking about flattening the curve. What that was all about was, help us keep the hospital waiting rooms and emergency rooms, down, help keep their use down so that the serious emergency room clients could get the needed care that they needed. So the guidelines are all based on safety, and they still are. I noticed Governor Cooper was on yesterday, and he didn't lessen the restrictions any more than the last round of restrictions, but he didn't add any more as well, because he understands, business must go on, but he also understands there's a certain amount of safety. A lot of it has to do with people taking personal responsibility for their safety. So if your customers aren't coming into your store, it's because they're at home, trying to be safe. That involved a lot of travel restrictions. People just aren't traveling around like they were before. So it seems like we get out now, we go one place to the next place. So where are your customers? Are probably stuck in their cars. What else changes have happened and your customers are responding to? It has to do with the way you were communicating with them originally. You need to take a look at that. So before you're reaching out to somebody in a certain way, that might not be working anymore. My best example of this, if you happen to have a big roadside billboard with your message up on the billboard announcing what you're doing or whatever that's happening in your current business operation, well, there's less people on the road, so less people are going to be seeing that billboard advertisement. if you have a big bill, if you have a big sign on your property announcing what you do and the name of your business, what you do, how to contact you, that kind of stuff. Well, less people on the road, people are not getting the message. You're not really, your communications aren't really reaching to them. So communication channels change, which means media tools change too. So you're called upon to change some of your media tools to look at what's going on. Media tools change, so you might not be able to reach that customer before. If word of mouth was a big part of your marketing campaign, and a little sidebar here, that shouldn't be the only tool you have in your marketing box. But if that was one of your main tools in your marketing box, and people aren't going to work anymore, showing up with a bunch of other people, well, your word of mouth is not getting out there too far. It's not going so far as it used to be. So I'll talk a little bit about this going forward, but yeah, hopefully you had a bigger toolbox of marketing tools besides just plain word of mouth. Yeah, word of mouth is great if you're in a social networking situation, but most networking opportunities, social opportunities have quote unquote dried up. I have a specific example of that right now. I'm in addition to a business writer, I also write fiction. So when I launched the book a year and a half ago, a lot of opportunities to communicate were open. I could do book readings. I could go to bookstores and do book signings. I went to conferences and talked about my book and had readings at my book. There's many, many different types of meeting, networking opportunities to market that book I wrote. And because of that, it got out quite a bit. People bought it. I just recently published another book, and all those marketing tools are no longer available. There are no conferences. There are no book festivals. There are very few book readings, almost none, although they're trying to do them on Zoom like we're doing here. So the whole platform of marketing and getting your message out has changed now because of the COVID-19. So you need to take a look at that. Yeah, maybe your previous marketing messages tools were old now, and it's no longer doing what you want it to do. So you need to look at that critically, which also includes your message. Maybe your previous marketing message is outdated. So we'll talk a little bit as we go forward here about what your message should be like. But yeah, whatever you were talking about beforehand, you need to take a critical look at that. That message is no longer in demand. If that message is no longer needed in today's marketplace, well, then you need to have a different message. So what's the message? What are we talking about? The message is what you have that you're trying to sell, or your service you're trying to provide that nobody else has. That's that message that makes you distinctly different and gives you a competitive advantage over your competition. So whatever that message was before COVID, you need to be looking at it. Is it still valid today? Is it still a message that people will respond to today? Is it a message that outlines a product or service that's still in demand today? So that's what you're really looking at. Is that message still relevant as it was when you started your business, or at least as relevant as it was when you developed that message? Now, a lot of businesses have more than one message, and you're in good shape if you do. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on, about how it's important to have more than one message, how it's important to be flexible, and how it's important to have a variety of services and products. But yeah, so you might have an opportunity to pivot real quickly and update your message so that it gets the response that you want, so that it reaches your customers like it had to reach before. But you don't have to take it. I have that last bullet there. Don't take it. So if your safety measures are not up to date for the current environment, you need to get after them and change them. You need to get after those safety measures and make sure they're following the new guidelines. And if that's a particularly important aspect of your business, safety, then that might be part of your new message. Part of your new message might be, hey, come on in. We're taking all the safety measures to follow the North Carolina guidelines as we possibly can. That might be part of your message. If anybody's seen, since we're all been at home, we're probably watching a little bit more TV than before. But if you're looking at a little bit more TV, a lot of the new advertise its marketing efforts for all products and services online. A lot of it has to do with the new guidelines. A business changing, a business pivoting to make sure they align themselves with the new safety measures and new guidelines. It's very important. So you don't have to take all these things lying down. You can do something about it. You can make sure your business is safety in line with the North Carolina guidelines, and that will help you reconnect with your customers that are normally coming to you and maybe not coming to you right now. Yeah, travel restrictions, people can't come to you. So what's the response? You have to go to them. Somehow, some way, you have to go to them. Either it's delivery or other types of ways to sell. Maybe it's you really haven't used your website as much as you used to before. Hopefully you all have a website. Of course, the first step is you need a website. So if you're sitting there in the business and you're wondering where your customers are, one of the first tools you should pull out of your media bag is starting the website. But even those who have a website, make sure it's up to date. Make sure your message is on your website as far as the changes you've made in your business. Make sure you're communicating those clearly as well. But back to travel restrictions, since people can't travel to you, hopefully they can still travel to your website. Hopefully you still have a user-friendly, or you're developing a user-friendly website that makes it easy for people to get there, get to your website. And if you're in a business that you're selling products, your products should be available in some form, some shape, some quantity, on your website, and make it user-friendly. If you haven't done it already, and you probably should have even before the COVID-19, but if you haven't done it yet, you need to make buying, purchasing on your website, easy for your customers. Don't make them flip through 3 or 4 or 5 different screens looking for the PayPal. Make it easy for people to buy things on your website, and your customers will buy, and they'll keep coming back. So even though there's travel restrictions out there, and your customers can't come to you, well, you should be setting yourself up to reach out to your customers. whether that's through your website or whether that's through delivery service. And we see a lot of curb service now. A lot of curb service. Even your big boxes have curb service. It's interesting when you think about it. There's curb service, which means you still have to travel. You know what? People still want to get out of the house. People still want to move. Your customers want to get out of their house. You know that? They want to get out of the house. So give them a reason to come to you. Give them a reason to come to you. And they will. And make it easy once they get there. It has curbside pickup. Now, they might want to get in the car and get out of the house, but they still might not want to go into a small enclosed space if that's what you have. So yeah, curbside pickup is the answer. Curbside pickup is the answer there. So you can adapt to all these changes. You need to look at your media tools and what has changed, and what's still working for you, what's not working for you. So if that highway sign isn't working for you anymore, well, maybe it's time to start something else. So when you communicate with tools to your customer base, it's important to have a way to contact your customer base. In the old days, we call it a mailing list. So when it was time to get out some information, we sent out a mailer. We send out a gift certificate, we send out a coupon, we send something in quote unquote the mail. Of course, back then it was 3 cents for a stamp or whatever it was, nickel for a stamp, nickel for a postcard. But now, the media tools have changed. Now it's texting, Instagram account, Facebook messaging, and so forth and so on. So yeah, your media tools have changed. So if you really haven't changed to keep up with the times before COVID-19, well, now with COVID-19, you really have to change. And you have to grow that list of customers. So where are your customers? Well, I don't know. How many customers did you have to begin with? If you only had a handful of customers, your customers are probably going home and you're going to have a hard time making it. But if you had a couple of thousand customers, that's great. But can you reach out to them? Do you have a way to reach your 1,000 customers? Do you have a way to reach out efficiently, quickly, and with some value? Can you reach out to your customers? And that takes a lot of effort. That takes establishing a valid email list of customers that you can reach out to. We can't cover everything that entails in today's little seminar, But yeah, that garnering loyal customer email addresses and texting addresses is very important when you want to get a new message out there. So the more valid that list is, the more widespread that list is, the more opportunity you will have to get the message out. For, as a reminder again, if you're counting on word of mouth, well, there's very little networking opportunities out there now. So the new word of mouth now is, Snapchat. The new word of mouth now is Instagram. The word of mouth now is, contacting people through another social media method, whether that's Facebook or LinkedIn. So getting the message out, it's twofold. It's not only do you have to update your messages, but you better make sure you have someone to send it to. You better make sure you have a nice wide marketing email customer list out there, so you have an opportunity to reach out. So you don't have to take these changes that have affected business today. You can take some steps to pivot your business, to adapt your business, to change your business, to more critically be able to meet the demands that's affecting the marketplace today. Yeah, and this a lot has to do with what we see out there. Why are some businesses thriving while others are struggling? That I see that a lot with some of my clients right now, and new people when I talk to people about new businesses. Why are some businesses seem like they haven't missed a step? Yeah, and other businesses, oh my God, you just really struggling. And it's the spectrum of businesses. It's quite varied and quite wide. And you'll see a lot of businesses within the spectrum, within a marketplace that have not really been affected quite a lot by the COVID-19, where others have been affected, quite a bit. So the biggest thing was that people who were not affected, they were prepared. I'll talk a little bit more about that in general right now, but I'm going to have to be more specific about that in a few slides. But yeah, they were prepared. What does that mean, they were prepared? What does that mean, they were prepared? Well, one of the things we talked about just previously was, maybe they already had a website up. Maybe were people already able to order things from their website. Maybe they already have the delivery service set up. Maybe they already purchased a van that they were using in their delivery service. So they were prepared. And it was a lot easier to adapt or to pivot. Actually, they didn't even have to adapt or to pivot. They were already set up. They were already ready to go. So when the orders started coming in via their website, as opposed to coming in the door, they were already ready. They were prepared. Isn't that the Boy Scout? Is it the Boy Scout motto? I should know. I'm an old Scoutmaster. Yeah, be prepared. Yeah, they were prepared. Who knew? That's a famous two-word saying by one of our well-known politicians who shall remain unnamed. But his famous thing was, "Who knew?" Well, you should know. This is your business. You're the expert. So you should have known, what was necessary to withstand any type of economic downturn. The last big economic downturn was in 2008, and a lot of businesses struggled at that time. But other businesses, just like today, they didn't struggle because they were quote unquote prepared. I hope those businesses that struggled in 2008, here we are 12 years later, I hope they learned their lesson back in 2008 and were prepared for the current downturn in the economy. Being prepared is a business owner's responsibility. It's a business owner's responsibility to be prepared for a downturn. We get a downturn every 10 years or so. So we can forecast it right now. For some reason, some way, some event is going to happen, at least every 10 years. It's going to cause a big downturn in the economy. The stock market's going to go down, banks are going to fail. Unfortunately, we might be in a military conflict someplace, so forth and so on. There's always going to be some crisis in the economy that's probably going to affect the local marketplace. And when that happens, business is going to fall off. business is going to suffer. So you have to be prepared. We're going to talk about what some of those be preparedness things are, but yeah, you have to be prepared. So some businesses are thriving still because, quote unquote, they were prepared for the downturn. Being prepared enabled them to pivot. It enabled them to change. It enabled them to adapt. It enabled them to adapt to the new demands of the marketplace. Yeah, when the marketplace changes, there's new demand out there. So the more prepared you are, the more you'll be able to pivot to meet that demand. And again, just as an example, if the demand was for delivery, if you're prepared, you'd be able to pivot to offer delivery, whether that's hiring more staff or buying a delivery vehicle or, updating your website or whatever. If you're prepared, then you'll be able to pivot more easily. If you weren't prepared, now you got a lot of scrambling. If you didn't have a delivery vehicle, now you have to come up with some type of delivery vehicle. Hopefully be able to use your own car, or maybe you use one of the delivery services that are out there. But that costs you money and that cuts into your profit margin. But yeah, whatever is required, you have to pivot now. So once you recognize what's going on, you're called to pivot to meet the current marketplace demand, whatever that happens to be. You can only do that if you're flexible. That's my third bullet point here. Flexible. You have to be flexible in business. In the old days, we called it rolling with the punches. Yeah, being flexible. You can't be inflexible in business. So hopefully you have always been a flexible business owner, someone that rolls with the punches. If so, it's a lot easier to pivot. It's a lot easier to make changes. It's a lot easier to recognize the changing demands in the local market. So if you're not a flexible person, you have some homework to do on this. You need to be flexible. Flexible in many ways. Not only do you need to be flexible, your business needs to be flexible. Your business shouldn't be so stagnant that it can't take advantage of the newest trends and demands in the industry. You should be flexible anyway because trends change on a yearly basis. You might have an economic market collapse once every 10 years, but every year, business changes. So you have to be flexible every year. So hopefully you've been keeping up. If you had been flexible the last 2 years, you would already know that delivery is a trend in a lot of businesses. So you would have already pivoted 2-3 years ago to offering delivery service, which would have meant with the COVID-19, you would have been prepared to move more of your sales to delivery. But if you weren't flexible from day one in your business and you didn't keep up with the trends, you wouldn't have added delivery service 2 years ago, which meant today or this spring when the COVID hit, you weren't prepared. You weren't prepared. So preparedness should have started a long time ago, 2 years ago even, maybe 3 years ago. But you would have only taken advantage of that trend if you were a flexible business person. Be a flexible business person. Be a flexible business person. If you were flexible from the get-go, you would have been better prepared this spring to meet the changing demands of the COVID outbreak. That flexibility allows you to add services like we just spoke about. Yeah, again, these flexibility and adding services should have happened a long time ago. You should have already been set up on your computer to sell things online. That should have happened already. You should have implemented that even 10 years ago. And that's how long ago you should have implemented that. So being flexible would have helped you previously, and it's certainly going to help you now if you have to add new services to your menu. Excuse me. Yes, and being flexible helps you to add products too. So it's not all about services too, it's about products. Different products are going to be in demand. I always say every business has a menu of services or a menu of products. So whatever that menu looks like, looked like before COVID, what does it look like now? You have to make some changes. And it's a lot easier to make these changes if you're flexible. I was telling the old story when I was in the restaurant business, we had a menu of products, right? We had a menu of dishes that we sold. And on the menu, we had a recipe that was my mother's recipe, and she got it from her grandmother. It was a great recipe for a particular plate of food. And we kept that on the menu. I was stubborn about it, but nobody ordered it. We ended up throwing out half the ingredients that we needed to prepare that product because people just didn't have the same taste that my grandmother and my mother's family had for that particular product. I was pretty inflexible about that. I finally got rid of it though. I finally saw the handwriting on the wall. We were just losing money on that particular product. So I took it off the menu. Yeah. Hopefully you're not all married to your menu like that. I mean, you have to be flexible on your products and services. If you have something on your menu that's not selling, you need to get rid of it. And because of the current demands that customers are making now because of COVID-19, you need to be adding services and adding products to your menu. Those services or products that are currently in demand and that your customers are requiring. Those products or services that your customers want, you just have to start adding those to your menu of services and your menu of products. Start adding those. As you add those, of course, products and services, things change when you're in your business. Maybe you have to have some more people on hand. Maybe you have to have more staff. You're going to have a different inventory. Maybe you even need more inventory. Maybe you need a more space to add the inventory. If that's happening, then of course you're going to need more cash. That's the last bullet point here. You'll need more cash to make it work. If you don't have cash on hand, it'd be hard to buy a whole bunch of new inventory. If you don't have cash on hand, it's going to be hard to hire new staff. Or if you don't have cash on hand, it'll be hard to train your current staff to meet the new demands, the new products and services you need to put on your menu. So cash on hand is important. But having cash on hand is not a new concept. Having working capital on hand is not a new concept. That's a concept from 100 years ago. That's always been a concept in successful business operations. You have to have cash on hand. You have to have working capital, or at least you have to have access, to cash, easy access to liquid cash that you can put your hands on fairly immediately, so that you can do the things that's required. So you might be the most flexible person in the world and willing to pivot, and you might have kept up with the latest trends and you understand that these things have to be done. But if you don't have cash to make it happen, you're still going to be in a bind. You're still going to be in a bind. An old standard for working capital, you hear from a lot of accountants, especially because they work with businesses and they understand cash flow demands and what the current cash flow situation is with a particular client of them that are in business. And a CPA will say, just in general, you should have enough cash on hand to meet your expenses for 3 months. Whatever your monthly expenses are, you should have enough cash on hand to meet those needs for 3 months. And that amount of cash is going to be different. You have a little business at home, $3,000 on hand might be enough. You got a little retail business at a local shopping center, I don't know, you might need $15,000, $5,000 in expenses each month. You got a bigger operation, a big fancy restaurant, you might be talking about, $60,000 on hand if your monthly expenses are $20,000 a month. So there's quite a bit of cash involved for the large businesses, but whatever it is, small or large, when business starts to fall off, it's nice to have that cushion. It's nice to have that working capital there. It's nice to have that working capital so you can take the pressure off and the stress off. So you'll be able to meet the demands of changing your business around to meet the current demands of what's going on in your local marketplace. So cash on hand, working capital, it is not an old concept. Cash on hand, working capital it's been an old concept for business success for many, many, many years. So if you weren't lucky enough to have cash on hand when the COVID hit, that might be one of the premier ways that your business has been affected negatively, because you haven't been able to adapt. You haven't been able to pivot to the new demands. So if you have access to cash, if you have access to capital, you need to get it into your business so that the business can make the changes that's needed. So the businesses can hire the people, train the people, update the website and so forth, make all the necessary changes to meet the current demands of the local marketplace. Working capital, cash on hand, an important long-term concept for business success. So how do you know what's going on? So the title for this slide is, what basic market research should a business do to find out how demand has changed? Well, if you're working in your business, you have a good idea already, right? So yeah, you should have a good idea of what's going on. That's the important thing. You should be intimately involved. You shouldn't be being out there being caught by surprise. You should see things coming, and because of that, if you were prepared, you were able to adapt. But short of that, yeah, you should be looking at what's going on with your competition. What's your competition doing? It would be sad if you had a business and you were struggling, maybe even closed, but you looked up and your competition's still going strong. What's going on there? What's all that about? You need to get into that pretty deeply. What's going on? Why is he still working at it and I'm struggling? What's going on? Yeah, your competition is one of these good news, bad news words. The good news is that if your competition is still open, the good news is he's still meeting demand. Even though demand has changed, he's still meeting demand. That's why he's still open and going strong, and you're not. The bad news is, of course, you have to compete. But if you do an in-depth analysis, if you look at the trends, you look at what's going on, the second bullet here, you take a look at what's going around, what's going on, then you could come up with a plan to get back in the game. You can come up with a plan to get back in the game. That's the goal. So if your business has been affected by the current demand changes in the marketplace, once you analyze what's going on, well, it gives you an opportunity to get back in the game. Now, it's still going to cost some money, I think. But yeah, at least you know what the goal is, and at least you can come up with a plan. Based on the plan and the goal, you might be able to find some funding, or you yourself might be say, all right, I've got a plan here. I don't mind investing a little bit more in my business to keep it going. You would certainly have to have a good plan in place if you went out and looked for funding in the local marketplace, either through SBA funding, either through bank funding or investor funding, or whatever kind of funding platform you're looking at. Now, you'd have to have a plan in place before you get any funding. But yeah, what's your competition doing? Take a look around and see what's going on. And the next bullet here, we talk about marketing. I'm going to reflect back just a second here on the first slide. I mentioned it, but yeah, after you take a look around and you come up with a plan and you put the plan in motion, and hopefully that plan involves a quote unquote new message, because you're bringing on different products and you're bringing on different services, or you're making changes in your operation because of safety. Now, hopefully all that new stuff, that's going to become the message of your marketing. And you're going to utilize that new message. And that's what's going to make people respond. That's what's going to make old customers respond to your efforts. So don't lose sight of what you're pivoting to, because what you're pivoting to becomes the new message of your marketing campaign. Yeah, so you need to stay abreast of the social media. You need to make sure you look at what's still working and what's not working. It seems to me people are, trending away from Facebook and going more to Instagram and other platforms. But whatever was working before, you have to make sure it's still working. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment with new things to try to reach your customer base. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about that in a second. Yeah, and you should be keeping up with what's going on in your industry, either through industry reports, some bulletins that your industry sends out. A lot of people make their living on keeping up with the industry and sending out reports. If you were keeping up with your industry online, you would see a lot of new reports out, a lot of blog posts, a lot of advertisements for checkout. 19 ways to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. The 10 best ways to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. The 5 best ways to win back customers, and so forth and so on. Yeah, the internet's full of suggestions and ideas, and you need to keep up with what's going on in your industry. Now, you also have to be able to keep up with what's fake news and what's real news, right? So, a lot of out there on the internet, requires us to be discerning consumers of information, and just don't hang your hat on the first thing you see. But yeah, if you take some time and get an assortment of reports and bulletins from a variety of sources, you should be able to keep up with your industry pretty closely. So you'd be ready. So if you're flexible enough to look at that, then you'd be ready to adapt, and you would be ready to pivot to meet the current trends in the marketplace. So, read, visit, click. Yeah, you should be reading that. The library is still a good resource. There's a lot of tools at the library that you can actually get current editions of a lot of periodicals, a lot of newspaper reports, and so forth and so on. You don't have to subscribe, to half a dozen different things. If your industry's got 3 or 4 main reporting agencies out of it, reporting groups, well, you probably find those visiting the library. So a lot of online tools available for business use at the library. And visit, I mentioned that before. Yeah, you should be visiting your competition, and you should be visiting other businesses that are quote unquote maybe similar to what you're doing. That visit might be an online store, an online website. It doesn't have to be a bricks and mortar location with a sidewalk. That could be another type of location. But yeah, you need to be reaching out and visiting other locations. And that's what clicking on means. Yeah, you need to be clicking on other websites. What are they doing? What are they going on? What's going on with them? We're working with somebody not too long ago, and we clicked on their website and looked pretty good. And someone in my colleague group said, I wonder if they're still open. So the website had the phone number, so we called them up, and you know what? They weren't open. They had closed down. They didn't change anything on the website, but yeah, that was quote unquote for what we were looking at that particular point. That was good news to find that out before we went any further with that particular project. But yeah, check out what's going on. Click on the website, pick up the phone, find out what's going on in your competitive marketplaces. And most of our marketplaces are very, very competitive. So if you weren't able to establish a competitive advantage early on when you started your business, or if the competitive advantage you were able to develop is now not appropriate for the current marketplace, then you need to find out what's going on so you can develop another competitive advantage. You have to have some reason, again, that people want to come to you, some benefit you have that nobody else has. And as I mentioned a couple of times, whatever benefit you develop that's going to give you a competitive edge, that's the thing you advertise. That's the thing you advertise. All this has to do with feedback. All this has to do with feedback. Again, I mentioned this again, but you only get feedback if you have a lot of current customers, or if you have a way to reach your customer base. That's where you get feedback. Hopefully, if you've already had that, that meant you were prepared well in advance. Hopefully, you were already prepared so that now reaching out to these customers to get some feedback is a lot easier. It's a lot easier. It's pretty tough to get feedback on your customer base if you have no way of communicating with them. So, if Facebook's all you got, you need to put up some postings immediately. And hit it hard, because you got to get some feedback. What are customers currently demanding? Because all the research you can do, all the articles you can read, every isolated marketplace is different. So you got to make sure you're responding what your current marketplace is asking. You have to respond to your current customers and what their needs are and what their demands are. It doesn't do you any good to read an article from California. They got their own problems out there. What's happening right here, in your local marketplace or in your local group if it's an online market? What's happening? What are the current trends there? Get some feedback. So you can do this a couple of ways. If you're able to get some information out to a focus group online, you could even have a little Zoom meeting. We had a little Zoom meeting this past weekend on one of the groups I work with. It was pretty cool. About 8 people were in there, and there's a lot of talk going on about what's going on in that group. What group, that particular group happens to be a writers group, but what particular things are going on in that group? What types of direction are we focusing on, and so forth and so on. It was an opportunity to focus the mission of that group. And that the focus group can do that. You can poll existing customers. Like I said, though, if you only got 10 email addresses, that poll's not going to go too far. Hopefully you have several hundred email addresses. So when you actually poll your existing customers on the internet or through the websites and through their email addresses, you can get a good sampling of responses back about what their current demands are, what their current concerns are. Same thing goes with your questionnaires. You can send out a questionnaire to all your customers. So this keeping track of your existing customer base is very important. I think you can see that the more expanded customer base you have, the more opportunity you have to get your new message out there. And what's the new message? The new message is, that you're acting on the current demands in the marketplace and you are pivoting your business around. Of course, to make that happen, we're back to cash, right? You need cash, and that helps you be prepared. That helps you be prepared. So establishing a strong customer base early on in your business is important to meeting new demands, whether they're pandemic-driven demands or just an economic change in the marketplace. Having a good customer base already in place will certainly help you to get your new message out that you are a flexible managing business owner and you are able to pivot to meet the new demands of the current market. Got to have cash to make that happen. But if you do it all like that, then you will in fact be, quote unquote, be prepared. I'm going to talk just a second about segmentation. This is one of the things that helps you be prepared. This is one of the aspects of being in business that helps you be prepared. It makes you have a more varied menu of services and products. Now, using the restaurant analogy, nobody expects to go into a restaurant and open the menu and only find one item on the menu. No, you expect to see a variety of things on the menu. And a lot of menu are cross-referenced. I don't care where you go, you probably still expect to see a hamburger and a hot dog on the menu, or chicken fingers for a child's plate or something like that. You have to be, you have to have a flexible menu. You have to have a varied menu of services or a varied menu of products. You can see from my little chart here, this is a anthropological segmentation of the Earth's time periods. Segmentation is different layers. In geology, you have different layers. In time, you have different layers. These are the different layers here. You can see right here is a Jurassic Park layer. I don't know if you are a Jurassic layer. I don't know if you remember from the old when the first Jurassic Park first came out. It's actually in the wrong layer. There was actually no dinosaurs around in that Jurassic Park age. Most of your dinosaurs came after that. Anyway, just a little sidebar there. But yeah, segmentation is layers. How does that relate to your marketplace, market segmentation? Well, any business should have layers of products or services that are available. The more layers you have, I like to say, the more opportunities you'll have to sell things. And in a certain way, the more prepared you'll be as the marketplace and market demands change. So your business should be set up so that your menu is a varied menu of products and services. Hopefully you have more than one item on your menu. You have to have more items. And what we talk about when we talk about market segmentation is that the local marketplace will be divided into more segments of people wanting to buy things from you. So I use the example here of a landscaping business. If you haven't heard it, coincidentally, landscaping is one of the businesses that have not been hit by the COVID-19 for a variety of reasons. But yeah, they have not been hit exponentially at all by the COVID-19. They've been just moving right along. Now, also, Lowe's and Home Depot, their gardening centers, they've increased too because people have been at home. And so people want to do a little bit more gardening now that they have a little extra time. God bless her, because I'm at home, my wife thinks I have all kinds of time to go out in the yard and do all kinds of stuff out there. No, I don't have any more time than I had before. I'm just as busy at home as I was when I was going to an office place someplace. So yeah. So anyway, looking at this landscaping business, I've got lines here, segmentation, segments of the local marketplace. So at the very top, what do I have? What does the landscaper usually do? What's their main business? They cut grass. The landscaper cuts grass. That's what they do. But usually they do a few more things. The next line, these are probably the few more things that most successful landscapers do. They fertilize, put down fertilizer. They might plug the soil in the fall, maybe in the spring, and they might lay out some seed. So I would think that most successful landscapers would do at least those four things, but there are a few who just cut grass. But you should be doing a few other things, and that's that second line. And that leads us to, well, you know what? There are a few other things a landscaper could do. So they could be pruning bushes, tree care for your trees, which are a valuable asset, and tree trimming. It kind of goes along with tree care, with tree care. Yeah. There's another level of segmenting the marketplace that you might be able to make money on if you provided this other level of services. How about this blue line underneath that? Yeah, think a little bit outside the box here. You know what? You're already on the property. You're already doing the few things on top. But that driveway, that walkway might need a little pressure washing. Or maybe the outside of the house looks like it's getting some mold and mildew. So if you have a pressure washer, well, that's another level of service you can offer the property owner. Goes along with, you might be able to clean some gutters. So you can see that's a little bit different than getting involved in grass, but it still has to do with working around the house. It still has to do with services or products that would be used in the house. And why wouldn't somebody add these additional services to their list of things they want you to do? I mean, you've already been cutting the grass. Hopefully they're already a good customer. Hopefully they will say, yeah, when you offer them an additional service, I see your driveway has been, getting a little bit moldy, mildew. Why don't I bring my pressure washer out and I'll clean it for you? Why wouldn't they agree to that type of extra business for you? And anytime you do something extra, it's cheaper for you as well. Chances are you're already there on the property. So you got no gas going back and forth. Maybe you already have the staff on hand that can do that. So the only startup cost is that pressure washer in this case. And, once you have it in place, it should pay for itself very shortly. So any kind of maintenance and repairs around a house or out in the yard, outside, and those are fair game for additional services you can add to your menu. One of the things you might be able to add are, irrigation kind of projects. That has to do with water ponds, maybe some lighting. Those are all possible things. Taking it a little further, patios, walkways, fencing is a favorite of mine. Fencing is a big thing nowadays people like to do. And, taking it even a step further, you can get into building, maybe gazebos, sheds, and maybe even some decks even. I would expect a full-scale landscaping service business to have quite a few of these things. Now, you might not start off with all these things. You might not be able to implement many of these things because you lack either the staff, the skill, or the equipment. But these are long-range goals. These are long-range goals which will help you increase the services that you provide to the local market. And in emergencies, where the local economy marketplace is affected by some economic disaster, you're in better position because you have a more varied menu of services to offer your clients. But you don't get to this point until you think about how you can be better prepared to meet changing demands in a local market. All right, that brings us to the end of our hour. Now we're going to open it up to questions, either through your chat message or just on verbally. So, Diane, any questions out there?
Don't have any in the chat, so see if anybody has any otherwise. So we'll just give them a chance to.
Yeah, in the meantime, here's our sponsors, their contact information. Again, this will be recorded online in various platforms, so you'll be able to follow up with Diane, Susan, Adam, and Jeff as needed.
Ruben
and my own contact.
Yeah, thank you
That's
for
good.
putting that up there because it's always really
Yeah.
great information. And we're getting a lot of great feedback. I always get messages, hey, we missed it today, but we're going to watch it later, or we've watched it since then. So
Well, that's great.
thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, hope everybody enjoyed it.
I'm sure they did. And I don't see any feedback or any questions. Does anybody have anything?
All right. We've all been a good group. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Awesome. Thank y'all so much. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you soon.